Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. This morning I picked a basket of cucumbers, pickling cucumbers to be exact, Boston picklers and bait alphas, to make bread and butter pickles. 2 tips for a crispy pickle for me: pickle them the day you pick them, preferably as early as possible, and cut that blossom end off and throw it away on every one of them, and your pickles will stay crisper longer. I picked these pickles about 20 minutes ago, and I'm gonna wash them, cut those blossom ends off, slice them up, put them in some salt water with some onions, and let them set for 2 hours before we get to pickling. I'll be back. This is something you might be interested in, I don't know. You have a blossom end on your cucumber and you have your cut end. Sometimes there might be even a little bit of a stem attached there. But that's how you identify them. If your bloom is gone, look for the cut end. You can feel it. And I've never had good luck pickling a slicing cucumber. There might be somebody that has, but for me, a slicing cucumber turns to mush really quickly. It doesn't hold up well. They're meant to be eaten fresh or in a salad. Boston pickling cucumbers, any kind of pickling cucumbers, are really what you need to make pickles. I don't do any exact cutting. I like them thick enough to where I take a bite, I hear that crunch. And you can pickle the stem end too, it's no big deal. When you get these pickles, when you pick them, they have little black spines sticking out of them. You want to make sure you get all that and all the dirt and everything scrubbed off, because you don't want that in your pickles. But you just make sure you cut that blossom end off and discard it. Give it to your chickens, put it in your compost pile, whatever. Just don't put it in your pickles. Other people swear by grape leaves. I've tried grape leaves. I couldn't tell any difference. I couldn't tell any difference in how the pickles stayed on their crispness. Some people use alum. I've tried alum. Again, I couldn't tell any difference. There's different pickle crisp products out there, and a lot of your recipes will call for that. You need to do whatever, you need to try to stick to that recipe as close as you can, because they've been tested. Most usually, if it's a ball recipe, they've been tested safe by going by that recipe. So try to stick with it. Today I'm going to be using a ball recipe. There's several different ones out there, but I'll show you the book. This is the book I like. Home Preserving Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. It's my favorite one. They're usually on Amazon. And this recipe doesn't call for any kind of pickle crisp. It calls for 10 cups of sliced, trimmed pickling cucumbers, 4 medium onions, thinly sliced, 1/2 cup of pickling or canning salt. You don't want to use iodized salt in your pickles, in anything that you're going to pickle. You want to use pickling salt, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a little bit. 3 cups of white vinegar, 2 cups of granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of mustard seeds, a teaspoon of celery seeds, and a teaspoon of ground turmeric. Now, it's not really that you can add things to a recipe, but if you need to take something out, you can. I'm not going to put turmeric in my pickles, so it's fine to leave that out. All right. I'm gonna finish slicing these up. I'm noticing And my mother-in-law said the same thing. We're noticing that our pickles are slightly deforming. I think it's the weather. We've had so many cool days and hot days both, and it's affecting, but this won't affect the taste. Just makes for a not so pretty cucumber, but it's still gonna go in the pickling jar. This was just from this morning's pick. I don't know if I'll have exactly 10 cups. If I don't, what that means is I'll just have brine left over. I'll have pickling brine left over, and that's fine. If I have more than 10 cups of cucumbers, I'll take those leftover cucumbers. I can make more brine up if I wanted to, or I can just put them in the fridge with some ranch dip or, you know, something else on them, and use them for that. So it's no big deal. All right, I'll bring you back here in just a little while. We got to put these in a stainless steel pot or a glass bowl. We'll cover them completely up with water. And we're going to put the amount of cannon salt the recipe calls for on top of this. The onions will be in here too. And it'll be left for 2 hours before we pickle them. I'll show you here in a minute. Okay, this recipe calls for a half a cup of pickling salt. This is the kind I use. You can usually get it at a grocery store if they have a little cannon section. Their Sure Gel and things like that, and their cannon jars, or a big box store. You can order it online. But this is the kind I use, and I wanted to show you this same maker, Miss Wages. If you don't want to go by the ball recipe, if you want to make it super simple, you can buy these little packets of different flavors of pickles that by Miss Wages. This is the bread and butter one. It makes 7 quarts, whereas the recipe I'm making, I believe it's 4 pints. So you need 9 to 11 pounds of pickles to use this, and 7 cups of sugar. Now don't get me wrong, I could do it with 10 cups of cucumbers, but I'm gonna have a massive amount of brine left. I could save that, put it in quart jars, put it in the fridge until the next batch of pickles if I wanted to. But I'm gonna wait. My son and his wife have planted a beautiful garden this year, and they have a lot more cucumbers plants than me. So I'm just gonna, if they want it, I'll give it to them to use. Miss Wages makes a hot and spicy dill pickle mix that I will use as soon as I get it. It makes the best hot dill pickles in my opinion. But I just wanted to show you. I'll be putting a half a cup of this on my cucumbers, onions that I've got sliced up and covered with cold water. I'll put a half a cup on there, and after 2 hours we're going to strain that off and rinse those cucumber slices and onion slices really, really well to get the salt off. This will basically help pull some of the extra moisture out to help keep your pickles crisp. We'll be back. Okay, this is 3 cups of white vinegar and 2 cups of white sugar. And I'm gonna stir it until it's on the heat. I'm gonna stir it until the sugar dissolves. I'll add 2 tablespoons of mustard seed and 1 teaspoon of celery seed. That's your pickle brine. That's what you're gonna pour over your pickles that you've packed into jars. This pot is what I'm heating my jars up and sanitizing them in. You're not gonna have to have it boiling, but get it close to boiling. Put your jars and your rings in there. Most of your lids nowadays say not to boil them, so we'll go by what the lid box says. That's your brine. Here, I'll go ahead and get a teaspoon. Is that a teaspoon? Yep. celery seed. And we're gonna get 2 tablespoons of mustard seed. Let me just set you down so we can see what we're doing. All right. Here's 1, 2. There's your mustard seed. We're going to get this up to boiling. While we're waiting on it to boil, though, we're going to go ahead over here and pack our jars up. I've rinsed the cucumbers and the onions. Got them rinsed. We'll leave that setting. Oops. These are what, when I say rings, these are what I'm talking about. I got to get some more boxes of lids. I got a few over here for starting off to show you, though. We're going to step over here. This is what a jar lifter. You use it to reach into that hot water to get your jars. Let me go ahead and show you. You just lift them out. It's the safest way to do it. A lot of times you can get a kit. It'll have a jar lifter, a funnel for putting into your jar to pour your brine into, a debubbler. You get the bubbles out with this, and I'll show you. And it also has headspace marks on it, because you have to do a certain headspace when you're canning. Anyway, I'll be right back to show you what we're doing. Okay, I got the jars. I went ahead and got them out of the water on the stove, and the recipe says to pack the jars up to a generous 1/2 inch headspace, meaning you're going to want to stay on your headspace. You're going to want to stay a 1/2 inch from the top. And mash them down good, because they'll shrink up when you can them, and you'll wind up getting too much liquid and not enough pickles. So really work them down in that jar. I got my vinegar and spices on the stove, and I've got them on a low boil so they stay good and hot to go in this jars. Really mash them in there good. The more pickles in there, the better. Now, if the smell of vinegar bothers you, you probably don't want to make pickles, because that boiling vinegar's, you can smell it. I'm surprised y'all can't smell it. But pack these jars good. Like I said, 1/2 inch headspace. That should be about right when we do our vinegar and debubble. Sometimes after you put the vinegar in and debubble it, you'll wind up having a lot more room, and you can add more cucumbers and onions. All right, I wanted to just get a couple done so I can show you real quick on putting the liquid, the brine. That's what it's called, is brine. All right, now I'm going to use my funnel to put the brine in. And I'm going to use this measuring cup just to, all right. It's not a hard brine to make, so if you want to make some more, if you wind up with more pickles than the recipe calls for, go ahead. It's not a hard one to make. Alright, let's set that aside, but not blocking the view. Take your debubbler, or a wooden handle or plastic handled spoon and work it down in there, because air bubbles get trapped amongst the cucumbers and onions. We gotta let that out before you can it. And I can already tell that brine, just doing that brine has went down a lot. So, gotta put some more in there. Let me see where we're at. Looks like we got that 1/2 inch generous. I'm gonna take one pickle out just to be safe. I don't want this bubbling up and messing my seal up. Alright, we'll do this one. Canning is not easy work. You're gonna be on your feet a lot. Pickles ain't too bad, but when you go to doing tomatoes, where you have to blanch them and peel them and everything, you're gonna be on your, it's gonna take a while and you're gonna be on your feet quite a bit. So keep that in mind, that it's an all day deal sometimes. It's also messy. Wear an older shirt when you're doing tomatoes for sure. Yeah, that one's good too. All right. Now I got a little dish of white vinegar, because the brine and vegetables and things get on the rim, and that'll keep it from sealing, and you'll lose your jars of all your hard work. So wipe that rim off real good with that vinegar. Now I've already sanitized my rings. I've just got them sitting over here waiting. You're gonna take this. These are wide mouth jars. I like to do pickles in wide mouth jars. It's easier to pack them, and it's easier to get them out. And that's a wide mouth lid. Lids haven't been super easy to find here lately. But you just set that lid on there. Fingertip tight. You don't want to put those rings on too tight. Just fingertip tight. And just set them on there. You're gonna water bath can these for, let me check the recipe. You're gonna cover them with about at least 1 inch of water. Needs to be above the lids in the water bath canner. You're gonna bring it, make sure it's boiling, and you're gonna process it for 10 minutes. You're gonna take the lid off your canner and let everything cool down about 5-10 minutes, and then take your jars out with your jar lifter and set them over to the side, and you're gonna be listening for that ping, ping, ping. I'll show you when I get mine out of the canner what they look like. Okay, it's the next morning. I have removed the rings from my jars. It helps. You'll know if it loses its seal faster if the rings are off. If the rings are on, it can hold that shut, and you'll think it's okay, and it won't be. Same as stacking them on top of each other. Put a piece of cardboard between those if you're going to do that, and it'll help if one of them loses its seal. There's so much sugar in this that if anything come out, boiled over during the canning, then it would get on the jars. So go ahead and wash your jars off real good. Wash your rings and dry them by hand, because the rings, the bands tend to rust if you don't. I don't like to put them in the dishwasher. It seems to make them rust faster. But your jars can be put in the dishwasher. Wash them up. You're going to put what they are, and then you'll put the date that you canned them right here, and store them where you would your canned goods. I could have crammed them a little fuller, when I did them, I noticed this morning that I had a little bit of free space in the bottom of some of them. But all in all, I think they turned out to be a pretty pickle. I'll give it 2 weeks before I try any. Hope y'all are having a good morning. Have a good day. Love you.